Hi everybody, this is Paul Cooper with Totes and Notes, and I'm bringing you this week's Market Meltdown. It's Monday, June 25th, and we're going to talk about, starting off, one of the worst deals ever made, and catchy headline, forget Iran nukes, it's the worst deal anyone ever made. And it starts off with a little history during the dot-com bubble in 2000, how AOL bought Time Warner for $162 billion, which was a lot of money back then and still is to this day. But, that was very astonishing for back then. And, a couple months later, stuff dropped. AOL, if you remember them, you probably had a bunch of their CDs for free minutes. They were losing subscribers because broadband was just coming online. And it just did not end well. And so now it's talking about, you've hopefully heard about it this week, the largest merger in history was AT&T bought Time Warner for, it was $108 billion. So $108 billion to buy Time Warner. And the thing is Time Warner is only contributing about $1 billion a year in annual free cash flow to AT&T. So what that basically means at the end of the day, that's money that could be going to shareholders. That's generally a very good way to gauge profitability if you're looking at the free cash flow. So they spent $100 billion to make $1 billion a year. So they're getting a yield of 1%. You hope you could do better anyways, but then with $100 billion, you hope that gets you better than 1%. So it's incredibly overvalued. It's a horrible deal, and it's gonna be interesting to see what happens in the future. That's not sustainable to spend that type of money for that type of return. So I thought that was a pretty interesting article. And again, with just like every week, I'm going to put all these links to the articles in the bottom of the description on YouTube. So if you'd like to read more, those will be available for you. Next article is about the whole trade wars that we have going on and how China is now vowing that they're no longer going to basically tolerate Trump's tariff shenanigans. They're going to start responding in kind. You've probably been hearing about this. The EU starting to do it. They're doing it to whiskey and bourbon. They're doing it to our jeans, Harley Davidson motorcycles, a lot of luxury stuff. And that's usually the easiest thing to start with is luxury items, but it's going to spread if it continues. And then, China, we have a trade deficit to them every year. We need them to produce garbage for us more than they need us. They just get our money. So this article was kind of interesting, just talking about that and how and we discussed last week about the tariffs and the trade war. GDP's kind of increased due to the Trump tax cuts. People are getting more money that way, and that's stimulating spending and paying down debt. But these trade wars are probably going to hurt us, and if we do, it's going to depend on how bad. Are we just going to be neutral and basically come back to step one where we were originally at, the Trump's tax plan, and then the trade war just kind of even each other out, or are we going to go negative? So it's something to keep an eye on, and feel really bad for a lot of small business owners that need raw materials that are getting on track, because this, for lack of a betting word, this pissing match probably isn't going to help anyone. But a pretty good article on here about China and what they've got going on and how it affects Apple and big tech, because a lot of big tech is also based in China. Everyone thinks Apple's so great and everything, but then in China, where the iPhones are made, they have to have nets to catch people that are trying to commit suicide by jumping out of the building. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So let's go over to Housing Wire, and this will cover more in real estate stuff. We're going to start first with, let's start with this one. The conservatorship may end for Fannie and Freddie Mac, so they eventually may be going away. Trump, I believe, announced this last week. I think they were supposed to meet today, and it looks like it's going to be later this week. They kind of had to delay things. It's going to be really interesting what happens, and this is real estate, and then specifically notes this should affect us in a big way. And it's funny, it talks about here the Mortgage Bankers Association. They're ecstatic. They would love for this to go away. And so I'm always generally for smaller government and less regulations. But when you get the wolves start cheering people on and start dancing, then that's usually when you should take pause to see who's this really helping. Is this going to help the consumer and the market, or is this going to help the predators? It'll be interesting to see what happens. So you'll want to watch this closely. I'll make sure to probably, as I read stuff in the future, I'll make sure to post on that. And it's, for better or worse, it's probably going to impact the market in a fairly big way. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, so now to our other Housing Wire article. It's how to survive the inevitable ups and downs of multifamily. And I like this article quite a bit. It talks about multifamily and about the new situation with co-living. If you're not familiar with that, it's kind of like Uber. There's a big, sharing economy going on now. As opposed to everyone buying their own thing, you can rent and borrow it for specific amounts of time. And this co-sharing, co-living thing's kind of interesting. I mean, it's very 60s and hippie, and it's been impacting multifamily and remodelers in a big way because now they're having to design stuff differently for these type of, living situations. And then, so that was a little interesting. And then here's some cool stuff. Down here, it's talking about better modeling models to end a boom or bust, and talks, how, let's see right here, and I believe that it should be this paragraph, how it's more run on what people feel and emotions than actual rational data. They went back and they were interviewing agents, during these long fundamentals and how they thought things were going on. And these agents like, oh yeah, sales are increasing, so it's great. And it just kind of kept feeding off the market. If your realtor's telling you that the market's booming and it's getting better, then you can get sucked up into the mania. And that's kind of how you get the tops and the bottoms as opposed to a smooth up and smooth down. And then there were some issues here about how to deal with, a rational mind, come up with core problems, and how you can try to eliminate the whole mania. So it was a decent little article, covered a couple of topics here, very short, enjoyable. And I hope you guys like this. If you have any questions or any topics you'd like me to cover, please reach out to me, and I'll make sure to get these links loaded up for you guys so you can watch the video and then read the articles for yourself and let me know what you think. Y'all have a good evening. I appreciate your time. Thank you.